on a mission, Dave, to reach that 25-year-old version of myself who sat there in the hallway covered with his wife's vomit, reading her chart. That guy deserves a lot of compassion and help. And there are a lot of those guys out there, a lot of those women out there who are dealing with this. They're taking care of special needs children. They're taking care of aging parents. They're taking care of a spouse or brother, sister, whatever. Or the myriad of scenarios are all over the place, and they do it in isolation, and they do it in a very lonely place. And that's why your show is so important, because they hurt, and they're afraid and feel guilty for even admitting that they hurt. And that's what I'm on a mission to be able to Hope the Caregiver is more than just the title of my book. Hope for the Caregiver is this conviction that we as caregivers can live a calmer, healthier, and dare I say it, an even more joyful life, even while we're dealing with harsh and grim realities. Because we're dealing with harsh and grim realities doesn't mean we have to be harsh and grim. And this is what I'm on a mission to do.
Wow. This is a good time for a break, huh? Yeah. Why don't we take a break, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Caregivers, have you ever felt like nothing is going right? Well, cheer up and tune into Dave, the Caregivers Caregiver radio program on HealthStar Worldwide, where you'll learn how to avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout and how to survive the grieving process. With roughly 100 million caregivers in the U.S. and Canada alone, it's about 1/3 of the population. That means everybody probably knows somebody caring for a loved one. They say that there are only 3 types of people in the world: those who are caregivers, those who will become caregivers, and those who will someday need a caregiver. Mothers of special needs children, family members caring for elderly parents, spouses, siblings, or friends caring for disabilities such as Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, stroke, heart disease, diabetes, muscular dystrophy, AIDS, autoimmune diseases. The list goes on. Join Dave and his guests every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific on HealthStar Worldwide as they discuss avoiding caregiver burnout and surviving grief. You'll start feeling better in no time as you begin to receive practical tips and tools that you can start using immediately to help you get through the day and to live life more fully and abundantly.
And we're back with Peter Rosenberger, author, caregiver, radio show host, and my co-host, Adrienne Gruberg. Peter, I got to ask you, what is the number one piece of advice you seem to be giving caregivers over and over and over again?
I think they're not doing it to you, they're just doing it. And when you're taking care of somebody who's impaired, whether it's physically, emotionally, pharmaceutically, doesn't matter. We are the closest one to that person, and they tend to act out in a way that is hurtful to us. They may say or do things that are hurtful to us, and we don't have to take it personally. We don't have to go to every fight that we get a ticket to, and we can let a few things go and recognize that they're not doing it to us. They're just doing it, and it's okay. That's the first thing I tell a lot of folks, just to calm them down. The biggest issue that I found with caregivers, and bar none, and this is across every caregiver I've ever met, and I'm going to turn on this light here a little bit. Does that help?
Yeah.
The biggest issue I found with caregivers across the board, every one of us, is we lose ourselves in someone else's story, and we lose our identity. This is what I'm on a huge mission to help caregivers learn to speak in their own voice. And this really was driven home to me at the piano. My pastor asked me to play as people were coming into church, just to keep more, reverent atmosphere as people were coming in. Now, my wife's a no kidding singer. I mean, we're in Nashville, and we're, the governor had her sing at his inauguration. Mrs. Bush had her sing in 2004 Republican National Convention in New York at Madison Square Garden. Wow. I mean, she's a real singer. And I've been accompanying her for a long, long time. But when I sat down in my church to play, and you can see this on my website, this thing I do play in the middle. I'm actually sitting at the church doing this. I was playing these hymns that I've been playing my whole life, and all of a sudden I was hearing her voice in my head, and I was just playing the harmonies. I wasn't playing, as we say in Nashville, I was playing the changes. I wasn't playing the melody. And I realized I had to go back and retrain myself to play the melody. and I learned how to play in my own voice, even though I was kind of hearing her and I was playing around it. And that was a real aha moment for me as a caregiver to realize, oh, this is it. This is the thing. We caregivers got to learn to play in our own melody. We've got to learn to speak in our own voice. And it starts with saying the word I, not in an egotistical way, but we caregivers tend to speak in first person plural or third person singular. We just got home from the hospital. How you doing, Peter? Well, she had a bad night. Our situation is such. And I realized, okay, how do we help the caregiver speak first person? Now, when you speak in first person singular, that's when the tears come. That's when the stammering comes. I hurt. I'm tired. I'm scared. I'm pissed. I'm very upset about this, or I'm resentful, or I'm discouraged. I'm lonely. I don't care what comes after the word I, because that's honest. And that we can start. I had a guy call in to me one time, and he said, I take care of my wife with ALS and I suck at it. And I said, well, congratulations. Now we can have a conversation because you're being honest with where you are. And he does it. The fact that he shows up every day for work is extraordinary. So that's the issue that I go after with caregivers, is to help them learn to speak in their own voice.
Wow. You really connect when you talk, Peter. How long have you been, let's call it a ministry. How long have you been in the ministry of caring for other caregivers beside your wife?
Well, I don't care. My wife's not a caregiver, so I'm a caregiver. I think that it's been a growth process of learning to really take care of me first, because you can't export what you can't make work at home. And so I've had to learn to deal with myself. These are things that I preach to myself about. I would love to take credit for just being this incredibly inspiring, motivational person, but I'm not. This is very selfish for me. The more I speak to people like you, Dave, the more I hang out with people like you and talk about these issues, the stronger I get. My favorite story in Scripture is, or one of my favorites, is when David was at Ziklag. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
And all his men and all his family, his men's family, they were all kidnapped by the Amalekites, and all their possessions were taken and so forth. And they all gathered up stones, and they were going to stone David. His own men were. They were so distraught with him. And David encouraged himself in the Lord. It said, that's what he said for him. He just did it for himself. And then they were able to move forward and go back, and God gave him the guidance and wisdom of what to do next. But I think that's what we do as caregivers. We encourage ourselves in the Lord, and that's what I do when I come on your show, when I do my own show, when I get out and speak to people. I'm speaking to myself here. I am strengthening myself and reminding myself of these things. And that's how I do it. And I've been doing this for some time, but every day it's like the beginning all over again. Because did you ever see that movie 51st Dates or something like that?
Yeah, it's my favorite movie. Drew Barrymore.
Just as caregivers, every day we have to get up and read notes and rediscover, oh my goodness, this is the deal. We have to remind ourselves that we have these things in our lives, and we have to remind ourselves of these truths. We have to remind ourselves of all these things, because it's so easy to forget. You are literally, well, it's like, did you know that airlines, when they're on autopilot, and boats and ships and so forth, when they're on autopilot, they're not on course 90% of the time. They set the autopilot on, but they're off course almost all the time. But the autopilot is constantly making adjustments to allow for the winds, the waves, or whatever that's buffeting them off course.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we are as caregivers. But what's our heading? What's our autopilot? And that's a real problem for us as caregivers. You ever snowmobile, Dave? You're Colorado, or where are you?
California. I was born in Brooklyn, but I never was able to. It was on my bucket list, still is.
I snowmobile a lot, and I'm on doing that. And my son and I were out not too terribly long ago, and we were in the back country, and we're 10 miles from the house, way back in the back country. The house is 10 miles from the paved road, if that gives you an idea how remote we are. And I'm a pretty good sledder, and I know what I'm doing, but we got off the trail. The wind was blowing and covered all the tracks, and we took a wrong turn, and we ended up out this kind of a sloped field on the side of this mountain, and couldn't find the trail. And then my machine, I was looking at the trail, my machine just got stuck. Well, they're pretty tough to get out, but when you get them out, you can't let off the throttle. You got to get going where you're going to go, or you're going to get stuck again. I didn't know where the trail was. I couldn't see the marker. And I thought, if I get unstuck, I still don't know where I'm going, and I'm going to get stuck again, and maybe even a worse place. And that's a very unsettling feeling, you know. I mean, it's really terrifying. And the sun was going down, the wind was picking up, the wind began to twitch. Oh no, sorry, that was the wind. And so I was getting a little bit kind of panicked, what we call here in the South a high sphincter moment. And I was looking for the trailhead, and finally we found one of the markers for the trail. So, okay, now I got my bearings. Now we can get the machine unstuck, and now I can aim for someplace. That's where we are as caregivers. That is exactly what we are as caregivers. We are stuck, and we don't know where the trail is. My job, my passion, my ministry, anything you want to call it, is I want to point myself and fellow caregivers where solid footing is. We're going to get unstuck, and we're going to head for that. We're not going to try to get all the way down the mountain. We're just going to get to solid footing first. Then we'll worry about getting down the mountain.
Yeah. You know what frustrates me the most, Peter and Adrienne, I'm sure, Adrienne, you've had this problem as well, is when you give a caregiver, you know, they're asking you a very specific question, you're giving them the advice they need to know, and they just don't receive it. They don't take it. They don't get it. Have you ever had that problem, Adrienne?
Yeah, well, I think communication is one of the most important things you need is good communication skills. Whether it's the doctors and people in, you know, who are treating your loved one or your loved one that you need to communicate with better, and you really need to learn to listen.
Yeah.
Listening is really important there. If they're not ready, they're not going to hear you. I mean, people are in denial, and a lot of people want to stay in denial, and a lot of people want to believe that no one can help them.
Why is that? Why do people want to stay in denial? Why do they believe no one can help them?
Well, people sometimes are throwing pity parties for themselves.
Feels good to have a pity party, right?
Yeah, and there's self-justification and self-glorification. Sometimes it's hard for people to let it in, even if they've asked you the question.
How do you handle that, Peter?
Well, denial is a very comfortable place. It's the thing I found with caregivers is that a lot of times we're paralyzed with fear. And so if I have a hard time getting through to someone, and just as a side note, it's not enough to be right. By the way, you can be right, but it doesn't matter if people aren't able to receive it. You know, we're in good company. Our Savior came to this world, and he was right. And he came into his own, and his own received him not. So we're in good company if we're imparting truth and nobody's listening. What I try to do for those that I'm talking to that are having a hard time processing what I do is I boil it down to the next step. What's the next right thing? Don't try to tell them what they need to do or this or that. I don't try to tell people what they need to do. That's none of my business. They're going to have to, you know, they got to experience their own experience. I'm not here to orchestrate. I can't carry their life. I got enough drama in my own. I don't need someone else's. So what I do is I offer, what's the next right thing? The next right thing I found for me sometimes is just to get a bowl of soup and take a nap. And I don't try to overthink it. You know, give us this day our daily bread. Preach is real great till you have to live it every day. And that's what I do, and that's what we caregivers do, and that's how I've done this for 30 years. And nobody can do this for a lifetime, but anybody do it for 24 hours. So that's kind of the mentality I take. So when I see a blank look on a caregiver's face that I'm talking to, I boil it down to the actual next step. And the next step, maybe just sit down for a minute. Just here's a cool glass of water. And I don't try to overthink because I know that there's no roadmap that I can give them to navigate. They can't go back to that snow-covered field. I was 10 miles away from the house. I didn't need to know where the trail was 5 miles down the road. I just needed to know where the next stupid marker was. That's it. Once I got there, then I can catch my breath and figure out where the next marker is. But that's the way we have to look at it as caregivers. So I try to avoid getting those blank stares that people give me by not going down too much information. They're on information overload. I mean, sometimes they're literally shaking with fear, with paralysis of the mind of not knowing what to do. So they don't know. They just kind of freak out. So you just say, here's a bowl of soup. Let's just stop for a moment, take a breath, catch your breath, have a cup of coffee, and then we'll look at the next right thing here. It sounds real simple, and I don't mean to in any way insult people with this, but that's how you do it as a caregiver. And if somebody comes up that has 30 years of experience and tells you different, listen to them.
I mean, I think with anything, if you tell people to take baby steps, and tell them it's okay to take baby steps, that's important. And this, when you put it the next right thing to do, it's what the next right baby step is. You're not asking for a lot. Just have a cup of soup. You know?
Have a bowl of soup and a piece of cornbread and settle down. Why do you think Cracker Barrel's so successful? All they do is offer comfort food.
Right.
They're not, And so just don't overthink it. I think that's the problem we get into. We overthink it. And so many caregivers say, how much longer is this going to be? How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And they're just freaking out and they're living in the wreckage of your future. You can't live there. And as long as you want to live 6 months out from now and cry about what's going to happen in 6 months, you're not dealing with today. And we have to deal with right now, right here, at this moment. This is what we got to deal with. And yeah, it makes sense.
You can paralyze yourself with what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? And then there's so much going on in your head, you can't really think clearly in the moment.
Yeah, do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own.
Yep.
There's a reason Jesus said that.
So, sorry about that. It happens every day at this time. I got to reset that. How independent is your wife? I mean, my wife, praise God, I'm very fortunate that she is very independent. I mean, she can bathe herself. She can fix the meals. She does housework around the house. I mean, she doesn't need me except for emotional support and for the few things that she cannot do by herself. But 90% of the time, she'd be just fine all by herself. Is your wife kind of like that? Or how independent is she? How much does she need you? Where do you find the time to do all this other stuff you're doing?
Well, those are several different questions. Let me take them one by one. She's had seasons of independence. There was a time when she taught herself how to snow ski as a double amputee.
Wow.
I learned with the disabled ski program. So she's had seasons of independence where she was driving and taking the kids to school and all those kinds of things. But then the last 6 years in particular have seen a rapid decline with her. And that's on a series of declining years. So we've gone through, for the most part, she's fairly dependent on a lot of things. I have someone here helping me at the house part-time, or I'm doing it all myself. I do the cooking and so forth. I mean, I can bring home the bacon fried up in a pan and never let you forget I'm a man kind of thing, And so it's there are seasons of this, but it hasn't been that way for some time where she can do those things. And, she's able to get over at church periodically and sing, and that's good. She does, and she got into the studio. I got her in the studio here in Nashville not too long ago. We laid down some tracks, and that was good because I wanted to hear her sing. But as far as the day-to-day activities and things like that, no, that's not where she is. Her problem is not her prosthetics or amputation. Her problem is that Gracie lives with an enormous amount of debilitating pain. 78 surgeries will do that to you. And she had an Evel Knievel kind of break. So she has tremendous arthritis, all kinds of just scar tissue and everything else. And so she's in pretty bad shape.
Wow.
But she keeps a pretty good attitude as well.
Wow. I think it's your phone that's vibrating, and we can hear it on the microphone periodically because I've muted everyone else. Is your phone like on the same place that your computer is? Your cell phone?
No, my phone's not vibrating. And I actually muted Adrienne. Sorry, Adrienne, but because I could hear the dog and all that.
She's out of here.
It's very quiet here where I am, so I don't think it's me.
Okay.
But it could be.
The mystery phone vibrator. Okay, we'll find out who it is.
Not here. Here's mine.
I actually came in here to the piano room where it's very quiet in here.
Good. And you're an excellent piano player, I assume. Of course you are, because I heard you.
Well,
I heard you on your website. You're amazing.
I do okay. I've narrowed my focus down to what I play. I mean, I studied music in college, and so I was a music major and composition, and I can sit down and play jazz tunes and all that kind of stuff. But if I went to a party or something and they asked me to play something from the Eagles or whatever, I just don't do that anymore. I mean, I can read pretty much anything I need to read and play it, but I really focus now on just hymn arrangements that I do. In fact, I'm going to cut a CD of those arrangements that I do at my church.
Yeah.
Because I play things that are comforting to me. And I play like somebody who's watched somebody suffer for 30 years. So when I'm playing hymns of the faith, I want it to be reflective and authentic to my journey. I just don't just sit down and bang it out. I really try to put my heart into it. That's how Dave, quite truthfully, that's how I minister to myself.
Excellent.
And then it's very meaningful to know that the congregation is ministered to when they listen to me play, and I'm very grateful.
And your wife still sings? I mean, I heard her sing the national anthem. Was that very recently? She's amazing.
That was a recording she did of it, but she hasn't performed it live in some time. She did that at several events, Walter Reed and so forth, and then she's cut some more stuff on her website. I have to send it to you. She does an arrangement of that we did together of "Be Still My Soul" and Tom and Gilead Orchestra. That'll break your heart. It's just so wonderful, and so we're getting her in the studio to cut more and more songs.
Oh, that's good.
And sing on the record that I put together with it as well. And she doesn't do live events other than church anymore like she used to. She used to do a lot of big events, but it just takes too much steam out of her right now.
Well, listen, let's take another break, and when we come back, we'll finish this up. We'll find out how we can get a hold of you and hear more about you and your amazing story, your book, your radio show, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
One arm, one leg, 100 words. Overcoming unbelievable hardships is a touching story about Charlene, a stroke survivor. Back in 1996, Charlene was a healthy, normal, very active 52-year-old woman whose amazing talents resembled that of both a Martha Stewart and Wonder Woman. But all that changed when she suffered a massive stroke that left her severely speech impaired and paralyzed on her right side. She met her husband, Dave, 21 years earlier. They had a wonderful fairy tale storybook-like courtship that soon culminated in their marriage. Charlene had just come out of a marriage where after 10 years, she received 2 black eyes and a broken nose by her former husband when he came home high on speed. Charlene believed in no second chances of any kind for abuse, so she left. Finding herself all alone in the world with her 5 and 10-year-old daughters, Cynthia Lorraine and Deborah Lynn, she started raising them by herself for the next 2 years. Then fate brought them all together. After falling in love with Charlene, Cindy, and Debbie, their love then produced Rebecca. They all had a wonderful, normal life for the next 20 years. But today, things are very different for everyone. One arm, one leg, 100 words. Overcoming unbelievable hardships is the amazing story of a woman's fight to survive all that life had thrown her way. Everyone who knows Charlene is thoroughly amazed at how she lives day by day, month by month, year by year, and with a smile on her face and hope in her heart that everything is going to be okay. Her faith in God is her foundation in this hope that everything happens for a reason, and what doesn't kill her will make her stronger. She inspires everyone that meets her. Best-selling author Lynn Barrington says, "If you think you have it bad, read this book. This is a beautiful, genuine story from the heart. It is inspiring and easy to read. When you finish this book, you'll be able to look at your concerns in a new light." 9-time Grammy and Dove Award recipient, the godfather of contemporary gospel music, Andre Crouch, says, Charlene just won't let the promises of God go, and she has not let her circumstances get in the way of her faith. She's not just a survivor, she's more than a conqueror. As the Bible states, you will be encouraged by her testimony, regardless of what you're going through. Order your copy today from the author's website, onearm1leg100words.com. And Dave and Charlene will personally autograph your copy. Enjoy.
And we're back with Peter Rosenberger, author, caregiver, radio show host, expert in everything. And my lovely co-host, Adrienne Gruberg from the Caregiver Space. Gruberger. Did I say Gruberger?
No, yes, you did, but there are people.
No, they're not related. All right. Do you have anything else you want to ask Peter, Adrienne?
Just wanted you to know we have somebody watching in Australia.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Who gave us 100 likes apiece, which is very sweet.
I forget we're worldwide.
Yeah. I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that the three of us are sitting here knowing that it's not just seniors who are finding themselves in a caregiving situation. It's not just baby boomers, and it's not just all about only Alzheimer's. There's, as you mentioned, there's just so many other things going on in the world that people need care with, and it's just good to be with you guys.
Awesome.
We share the same mission.
And we're all spousal caregivers. I mean, what are the odds of three of them getting together in one place, huh? Peter, I wanted to ask you, for a lack of a better term, how did you go viral, your message? When did you feel that your message really started making a difference in caregivers' lives and that, caregivers who you never met before?
Well, my board of directors, we started a prosthetic limb outreach for amputees in West Africa some years ago. This was my wife's vision after giving up her legs. And we literally put legs on folks.
Wow.
We teach and equip local workers in Ghana to build limbs for their own people. And I recycle prosthetic limbs that we gather all over the country, and they go to a local prison here in Tennessee where inmates volunteer to disassemble them. We've been doing this for some time through Standing with Hope. And then my board of directors came to me a while back and they said, you've developed a set of skills as a caregiver that need to be shared with others. And we think you need to start a show. We think you need to write a book. You need to start talking about this. And I really wasn't even thinking that way. I was doing my other stuff that I was doing. And so I sat down and said, okay, well, what would I say to my younger self? And that's what birthed all of this stuff. And then I got the radio show. Actually, when I went to the radio station, this is a secular station in Nashville, big station, big talk radio station. And they looked at me with a blank look on their face saying, what are you talking about, a caregiver show? They had no idea. So they passed on it. So I went to a little small mom and pop radio station here in Nashville and started doing my show. Well, then the other big station called me and they said, we've been listening to your show. We want you to come over here, come back over here. And I said, well, okay. And so they made me a pretty good offer. And I went over there and started doing it, and the show has grown. I think I'm their number one show on the weekends, and picked up on iHeart around the world through the iHeart program, and it really resonated with folks. And then I started speaking on this and being interviewed with it and talking about it. The book came out, and I've done quite a bit of media over it. WebMD, USA Today, Today Show, all Fox News and all that kind of stuff. And I write on this a lot. And again, it's just things I've learned from doing this for a very, very long time with a relentless situation. There's not one day that I don't have some level of drama, physical or emotional or spiritual drama that doesn't creep into this thing. And it's like going to the gym. When you go to the gym that much, you're going to get sculpted. You're going to see results. I don't necessarily see it in the same way. It's just that I get right to the core issues, I think, probably a lot faster than a lot of people. I don't dance around the hearts and rainbows and unicorns that maybe some people do about this topic. I see the scope of this thing. I was just talking with the traumatic brain injury program here in Tennessee, recently. That's a tough group of people, Ben. I mean, those are not death sentences; they're life sentences. Yeah. You think about that. Somebody has a traumatic brain injury, a child or something like that, and they're not terminal. This month, I'm going to be speaking to an elder law thing, and then in June, I'll be up in Baltimore speaking to Huntington's disease. Now, I don't know how much you know about Huntington's disease society, but that is a tough disease. And all of the caregivers that deal with that, man, they are really under it. So then I'm going to be doing a webinar with AARP later on this year, this summer. Jeff Foxworthy and I did You Might Be a Caregiver If video we did for AARP a while back. I asked him, I said, you want to do this with me? And he said, well, yeah, just write out some jokes. I said, these aren't jokes. This is my life. And the first one I think we started out with was, if you have a professional carpet cleaner on retainer, you might be a caregiver. Then I had one the other day. Is that if you've got the wheelchair manufacturer on speakerphone while you're making a meatloaf, you're probably a caregiver. If the hospital bed has not hammered your love life, but that's just my life. And people were kind of surprised that we could laugh and cut up with all this stuff. And I thought, man, you gotta laugh at this. This is, it's a muscle that I work, and I think it just resonated with people that I was different, that something was different about the way I talked. I didn't try to gussy it up. I got right down to the guts of it and said, okay, here's where we are, folks. And I'm kind of a gunnery sergeant of caregivers. I'm not going to sit there and paint a rosy picture. It sucks. All right, here we go. Let's do it. And so I evidently that's resonated with folks, and I appreciate just that.
You're my new hero. I want to be just like you when I grow up.
You got to set your standards a little higher there, Dave. Go to step up a little higher.
Wow. Adrienne, what's your next question?
I don't really have a next question.
I'm
come on, guys. Come on.
No, I mean, Peter is so good.
I have a question.
So easily.
Why did you have a board of directors? Were you a 501c at that time?
Well, Standing with Hope is.
And when did you start that?
The prosthetic limb ministry was started back in 2000. Our first trip was in 2005.
And that's the ministry Africa. You're speaking of, the prosthetic limb one.
Yeah, that's the 501c3 nonprofit that we have that you can sponsor a limb with. This was Gracie's vision. We give the gift that keeps on walking, and it's a great ministry. You can go out and see that at standingwithhope.com. And then the caregiver thing is kind of birthed from that. Gracie's reach, you minister out of your wounds, Dave. I mean, that's the deal, because where the wound is, that's where the light gets in. And this is where, where Gracie ministered out of her wounds as an amputee, and then I'm doing it as a caregiver. And I know what it's like to go down some dark paths as a caregiver. My story is not for the faint of heart, man. I mean, when I say I've made about every mistake you can make, I ain't kidding. And so I know the challenges on a caregiver. I know the heartache, and my heart breaks for my fellow caregivers. And so I just I want to come up alongside them, just like I wish somebody had done for me.
Yeah.
And explain these things in a way that I could understand when I was 22 years old, when I was 25 years old, when I was 30 years old. Heck, when I'm 53, I want them to still explain it to me. I don't try to complicate it and don't gussy it up. I try to come up with high dollar words. Nobody cares about that stuff. And quite truthfully, David, nobody really cares about my opinion. My opinion is irrelevant. It's not important. My experience, on the other hand, is highly relevant. And opinion is the lowest form of conversation. I'm not here to tell people my opinion. What I am here is, this is what I've learned through this. This is what I've experienced. This is what I've seen. This is what I've touched. Go back in scripture, it said they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Testimony is not my opinion. Testimony is what I've experienced. And this is what I've come to experience about life, about love, about God, about salvation, about the gospel, through these things. And, we have a Savior, Dave, who is the ultimate caregiver of a wounded bride. That's the church. and he gets this. He's been taking care of a wounded bride a lot longer than you and I have, and he gets this, and and that's comforting to me. That's strengthening to me because I have a Savior who really understands my journey, and for that I'm very grateful.
Now, how much publicity has Gracie been getting lately? I mean, is she ever on television? Was she ever interviewed? Does she play still?
Not anymore. She doesn't do as much anymore. I mean, she has a few things. She had an opinion article that they published about that she did on Fox News recently. Some print stuff, but she doesn't do camera interviews. And every now and then she'll call into my radio show just to give me a mercy, make her ratings go up. And
does she write?
But she does some, yeah. And hopefully she will be doing some more of that in the not so distant future. But she did a lot of media for a long time, and she's taken a good long break. I mean, her story, you Google her, and there's stuff out there all over the place about her, and our sons and myself as well. But so right now she's just resting and strengthening her body, but she's also she spends a good deal of time in thought and writing and prayer and journaling out, and she's got an amazing legacy of faith. Corrie ten Boom led her to the Lord when she was a little girl.
Who did?
Just an amazing journey. Her book's out there too. You can see that book out there. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever. But it's called Gracie, Standing with Hope. But it's a powerful book, and it's done real well for her. So.
And what is your website?
Caregiverswithhope.com.
Caregivers.
And you go out there, you get a free chapter of the book out there. Just is caregiverswithhope.com, and get a free chapter of the book. And there's all kinds of audio and video stuff out there, and it's just practical stuff I've learned along the way, how to deal with relationships, family, church, yourself, work, doctors, name it.
Yeah.
I cover. There's nothing I leave out.
I think.
Well, maybe pets. I put a lot of things with pets in there, but I do have a blog about love a dog. That's a good thing for a caregiver to do, is love a dog, and I have a great dog, and so love a dog.
What's Gracie's book again?
Gracie, Standing with Hope.
Okay.
And then mine is called Hope for the Caregiver.
Standing with Hope. And Hope for the Caregiver. I'm writing that all down so people can check it out. Adrienne, what were you saying?
I just wanted to say that the two of you are prime examples that people can retain identity or find a new identity while they are caregiving. It's not all about somebody else. We're going through something ourselves and have to express it. And the more we talk about it, the better it is for everybody.
And, everybody talks about that men are the minority in caregivers, that it's 90% women, 10% men. Is that really a true statistic, or is that just something that we're told? Because I know a lot of men who are caregivers. How about you, Peter? Any idea?
95% of all statistics are made up anyway. My brother is a 27-year caregiver for his daughter with cerebral palsy, and she's got cognitive impairments. You got two guys in the same family with about 60 years of doing this. And so I see a lot of male caregivers. I don't think that they get the press. I think the average caregiver in America is a 49-year-old woman taking care of her 69-year-old mother. But for folks that spend a lot of time thinking about taking care of the elderly, I cover a much different spectrum of caregivers, and so do you. And so I see dads that are very engaged with this, but they go about it quietly, being heroes.
Well, I think it's a fair statistic to say that women are probably better caregivers than men because they're just wired differently. They've got the compassion thing down and the empathy thing down, and we struggle, don't we? That's why men don't have babies, I think.
Well, I think for the short term, maybe that's the case. For the long term, I think a lot of it just depends on the guy and the gal, but I think we bring a unique set of skills to this thing. We are once we buy into the concept that this is our life, that we're not trying to get out of it, this is our life, we become very competent at what we do. we bring an approach to it that is more direct and not as nurturing maybe as some, as women can do. But at the same time, sometimes you don't need nurturing. Sometimes you need command and decisiveness. And I think men bring that a lot. But there's a buy-in factor they have to get to where they realize two things. Number one, I'm in this for the long haul. And number two, I can't fix this. Once men come to that grasp, that awareness, and grasp that they can't fix it, then the dynamics change for them, and they accept it. They don't stop. They're not fighting. Now, they may come back to that. They may have to come back as a touchstone to it, and struggle with it a little bit. But they keep reminding themselves that I can't fix this. I can't fix this. That's not my job. I'm a steward. And our first job, if you remember, first job for Adam was being a steward.
Yep. Well, I don't know where the time has gone. We have run out of time. It was an amazing hour. Thank you, Peter, so much for coming on. And Adrienne, thank you. And my caregiver audience, thank you again. We're here every Tuesday at noon Pacific Standard Time. And all of these are recorded podcasts on Blab and on iTunes and on, everywhere. Just go to my website. You can definitely know that they are there, caregiverscaregiver.com. And we put down the website for Peter and for Adrienne as well. And thank you again for coming on. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.